Are you thinking of leaving corporate, but too afraid to make the move? Have you already escaped corporate, but are finding it hard to run your dream business? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure challenges out on your own? We have created a podcast for corporate escapees running their own business. This is the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day as a corporate escapee. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your show host. And today, we're very lucky to have Nikk Hughes from Inspire Tribe. So Nikk started in corporate and didn't like the politics, and she really couldn't stand it and ended up opting out like many of us do. Then around 40, she also completely reviewed her life. She made some very significant changes, which she talks through openly through the podcast. And things weren't quite going the way she wanted, and she stopped blaming the world and actually looked inwards and sorted out some key issues with her life. And now that's turned her to help others do the same thing. And she really supports logical left-brain thinkers to get in touch with their feelings and to live a greater and fuller life. And as she explains that she's a mindset mentor, and she goes into detail as to what that is. So this is a fantastic episode, and I'll now hand you over to Nikk Hughes from Inspire Tribe. I hope you're inspired by listening to our wonderful guest stories. All of our guests know the one ingredient to rapidly grow their dream business. That is picking the right suppliers. Let's face it, it's too hard doing it all on your own. So with this in mind, we have created a free on-demand training which gives you the 4 essential questions to ask suppliers. I've combined my 18 years experience at Coca-Cola and 7 years advising corporate escapees all over the world to give you actionable advice in less than 25 minutes. Simply go to buildlivegive.com/webinar. If you are tired of underachieving and want to fill gaps in skills, please watch our on-demand training now. The link will also be in the show notes. Please check it out. Welcome Nikk Hughes from Inspire Tribe to the Corporate Escapees Stories podcast. So Nikk, we're going to get to know a lot about you today, but why don't you start with something that your family or friends would know about you that our listeners wouldn't?
Hi, Paul, and thanks. I'm so happy to be speaking to you today. And when it comes to what people don't know about me, I guess that would be I lived in Japan for 2 years of my life, not all at once, but over a period of about 6 or 7 years. And while there, I broke my femur, so that's the biggest bone in my leg, in half, and spent 7 weeks in hospital. That was my first trip to Japan.
Well, and can we ask how?
Well, I was riding on my bike in a country town in Japan, and both myself and the car were sort of in the middle of that country road, and that's where we met.
Oh, no.
So that was a very interesting part of my trip, and it's not one that I regret at all. I spent 7 weeks in hospital, learned a lot of Japanese, and it was, fun, if somewhat painful.
Yeah, no, look, it's a beautiful place. I've only spent a few days there, but I keep promising my family that I'm going to take them there soon, and maybe next year. And I know that it seems to be the place to go in January these days. It used to be ports in Sereno. These days it seems to be Japan and skiing.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's for Melburnians. It's a great summer place, ports in Sereno. For the non-Melburnians. So I know that you've had a sort of brief stint in corporate and then sort of started, quite a few successful businesses. But so why don't you just sort of give us a quick summary of that journey for you, how you've got to where you are today?
Well, it's interesting how brief my stint in corporate was, because I think I aspired to be in corporate for longer than I was actually in corporate. It was sort of over 5 or 6 years in total, but I got into corporate via a family friend. A CEO was in a listed company, and they sort of talked to me about coming in at a sort of a managerial, sort of a lower level managerial level to work our way up the ranks. And it started off very well for me in that I worked for a number of people that I respected, and I did really well just because I listened to what they said very carefully, and I sort of took action based on what they suggested that I do. it probably started to go pear-shaped for me when I started to work for a few people that I really didn't respect the way they treated their people. And so as I got moved around from, in a sort of company to company within the corporation, when I had to work for people that I didn't respect, I really wasn't emotionally prepared to deal with the political dynamics that happened in that occasion, on those few occasions. And I ended up sort of opting out and going, I prefer to run my own race rather than have someone that, I don't think they're looking after my best interest nor the company's. I'm better off to go it alone.
Yeah, and at that point, what was sort of your greatest fears in going out and starting your own business versus, what is perceived the safety of corporate?
Well, I'm probably a little different in that my greatest fears probably lie in the corporate environment. I remember when I was enjoying my job, my greatest fear was that how much I would be paid each year would be based on how long I spent in the corporation rather than on my efforts, or how long I was how hard I was perceived to be working rather than my results. So that was a fear when I was working for someone that I didn't like. My fear was that they could, affect my job significantly just from their perception rather than who I really was. So when I got out on my own, I felt far freer than I actually felt in corporate. I felt far safer because on my own, everything was up to me. And if I succeeded or failed, it was up to me. So then I guess my biggest fear would be that, I wouldn't actually succeed and I'd have to deal with that ego hit. But I guess I managed that fear by saying, well, do I want to take a swing, or do I want to end up on my deathbed wondering what would have happened if I had taken a swing? So I decided to take the swing of going it alone.
Great. And look, I'm assuming the answer to this is no, but was there ever a time where you thought, this has got that difficult that maybe it is worth going back to corporate?
Not when I was, not myself, within myself. I'd much prefer to end up in a teepee, living on a friend's property, than to not follow my passion. But when I started with my now wife and we lived together, she came from a background where her ex-husband had actually been in the corporate realms, and so she was very sure of what income was coming in every month. And, in our own business, that's not always the reality. So helping her manage the stress that comes with growing a business and then investing back in it and growing it again, and the roller coaster ride that it can be. That was probably the hardest part of just staying out of corporate life.
Look, I think that's an excellent point. And when I left, someone gave me some wise counsel to say, look, this is really about setting what that's going to look like, because you're so excited, you're leaving and you're chasing your passion, etc. But it is very scary for your partner. And certainly in my case, my wife, yes, was used to that corporate income, and I didn't really do that well. I could have done that far better on reflection. So how did you, or what are some tips that you could give people that are about to go through a similar thing on how to have those conversations?
Well, I think being aware that it's going to be an issue is a good start. It sounds like you and I both started in the same direction, which is to, the ignorance is bliss sort of stage, which only lasts for so long. So I think that being aware that being in business is challenging, and you do need to be prepared to actually take the worst case scenario on and realise that if you don't succeed, you've either got to go back to corporate life or you end up in a teepee because you just kept trying and trying and trying and it never really worked. And then having that conversation with your partner, are they willing to go on that journey with you? Are they willing to support you through that? And the reality is, if they say no, or if they say yes, but they really sound like they mean no, then the issues are going to come. So you may as well have the discussion before the pressure is there. Because when the pressure is on, both of you are in that tense space to start with. So then it's the most challenging time to have the discussion. So the easiest time to have the discussion is before the pressure's on.
Yeah, look, I think that's brilliant advice. And I think the other thing that we learned was just to not disclose everything. I think, it's when you're really going through tough times, and like you said, it's an absolute merry-go-round, and I found it much harder than being in corporate, even though there was the politics, etc. It's a different type of pressure. And I ended up just agreeing to a dollar amount that I would deliver each month. And once I agreed to that and I delivered that, I wasn't to talk about, all of the trials and tribulations to get to that number. And I think that certainly helped my wife and I. Not saying that works for everyone, but it certainly worked in our situation. I think your view on having it up front, it's no different to going into partnership with someone. I'm lucky. I've got a good business partner, but I know some people have had some really bad experiences because they haven't had that upfront conversation. So that's a great point, Nick. And as far as help that you've got, I know ran a very successful mortgage business for over 15 years. What sort of help did you get to get on your feet and actually get past some of those early challenges?
I'm a big believer in education. So in the early days, I'd just go to any course that I could find. And after investing quite a bit, quite a significant sum, more than $50,000 or $60,000, I started to realise I was better to put my money behind people who are actually walking the talk that they were teaching. So that wasn't necessarily a mortgage broker that I had to go and see, but if I was speaking to someone about marketing, did I look at their marketing and just love how they'd brought me in via their marketing? If I was looking at someone who was teaching me about how to create my IP, which is where I'm sort of at now, do I love the way their IP works, and do I look at their system and have I seen someone else use their system? So I very much, as I say, do they walk their talk? And they don't have to walk their talk. They don't have to be my ideal in every aspect of their life, just the aspect that I'm trying to learn from.
Excellent. Well, the next section is the build section, where we learn more about what you're doing today. So when you walk in a party, Nick, what do you say when people say, "Hey, Nick, what do you do?"
My standard line is, I'm a mindset mentor, which I know is the opposite to what all those elevator pitch people say. But at the end of the day, I'm interested in real conversations. So no one really knows what a mindset mentor is. So it's a short way to say what I do. And if the person's at all interested, they'll ask me, so what does that mean? And if they're not at all interested, it's the quickest way to move on to something that they are really interested in.
Sure. And when someone says, what does that mean? How do you reply?
It means I teach people how to think differently, how to get out of their old thinking paradigms and how to move into thinking paradigms that are going to see them create the future they want rather than keep reliving the past.
And have you got a sort of an example that can bring that to life? Don't obviously mention names, but someone that you've worked with recently, and just give us an example of how you've done that.
Well, it depends on the type of person that I'm dealing with. So we have people who are highly successful in their career and who actually feel that they want to exit their career, but what they actually want to do is get connected to themselves and their partner, and they believe that their career is the issue. So we work with people to find out what the real cause is, not what they think the cause is. So as I say, it's helping people to find their real issues. And I'm not your standard coach. That's why we call ourselves a mindset mentor. We have a framework that helps particularly logical individuals to work through their own logic. And we start off by showing them how to feel into themselves. And that's really what I learned how to do. So our work is what I used to do for myself. So if you're talking about someone who's had a shift, it was me. I used to think through everything, and it was a very slow way to learn and grow. And now I feel through stuff. And it's far, far quicker. I still think, I've still got a good head, but I use my feelings as well.
Right.
So, talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, and sort of who is your ideal client then?
Logical, successful individuals, so successful in one aspect of their life. And the reason for that is highly logical individuals will always become capped because there's a whole realm of their power that they're not using, and that's the feeling aspect of themselves. And a logical individual doesn't respect feeling nearly as much as they could. And when they do, it just, as I say, it just ignites them.
Right. And I know some people say, look, you're born with certain preferences and it's very hard to change. What do you say to people that are very logical and use that as an argument for not changing?
Oh, they can continue to believe it to their own loss is sort of my belief. At the end of the day, there's all these tests of DISC and Myers-Briggs and there's test after test. That's your starting point. And you can choose to be in any corner or realm of that matrix if you choose to be. And my own experience of that. I used to look at it and justify my corner of any sort of matrix of personality testing. And once I stopped doing that and I started realizing that there were amazing gifts and benefits of being in every corner of that matrix, then I just sort of made it my mission to get out of my corner.
Great. Well, look, a lot of people that do escape corporate really struggle with niching down and finding their ideal client. And it looks like you've done a really good job in doing that. Just give a bit of an insight as to how you came to that.
A trial and error. I'd like to say I knew it. I guess, I think some of the best work that people do is when they do the work for themselves 10 or 20 years ago. So I got to the age of just before 40 and I just could feel my own limitations. I could feel that I was blaming the world, but at some level I knew that I was the issue. And I knew, I'd changed jobs enough and done enough different things to realise that I was the source of the plateau. And so once I'd finally gotten to the other side, I just reverse engineered what I'd done and just made the fast track. So I think I look for people who have the issues or I can speak to back in when I felt trapped within myself.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful because in a way it was similar. You know how you said working with people that have, I suppose, walked the walk. In my mind, I went through the exact same journey trying to leave corporate, build a successful business, get it to a certain point, and it took me a long time to do that. And now what we do is help people avoid some of the mistakes because you will definitely make them, and there's blind spots, whether it's in business or as you do in your own mindset. And I think if you can learn from those that have walked before you, it can certainly make it very easy. But I know often people it seems so obvious to you that they need help, but they, for whatever reason, won't take it. With all your experience on mindset, why do you think people are so resistant to that change at times?
I think it's such an unknown, and it's one of those industries where there are good people and there are bad people, as in any industry. So I think it takes a while for the reputation of individuals who really walk the talk to blaze a trail and make a difference, such that people see that there's consistent results with some styles of coaching. As I said, there are good ones and bad ones, so I think people are a little bit reticent. And also, it's nice to think that you're not the challenge. It's hard to acknowledge that we're the challenge. And I work with this all day, every day, and I still find myself feeling into, it's interesting. I really don't want this to be me. And as soon as I can move through that, it's much easier. And that's our work is, as I say, it's built for me to be able to see that and move through it more and more quickly.
Sure. And around your business model, what does that look like? And sort of how do you make revenue helping people with their mindset?
Our business model is currently one-to-one and then one-to-teams as requested by individuals that we work one-to-one with, and they just want to share what they've learnt and help their team to come along on the same journey. The future business model is using the framework that we've created that allows an individual who's experienced the shift themselves to go and assist someone else to experience the shift themselves using the same framework. So I'm very much, I don't want to be the guru. I want to be the person who creates a framework that someone else can go and use and teach, and they can teach others, so it can move without us.
Right. And is that sort of in a license, a franchise? What sort of you thinking around how that may transpire?
I've got no language around that, Paul. I've got a vision. Yeah. Very little language, but yes, some form of license or I don't like the term, but network marketing, where someone who's been inspired brings on someone else who's been inspired. So viral sort of is more probably a version of it, so they can tap into it at whatever level they like.
Okay, great. And look, this question is hard to answer. I know it's hard to answer for myself, but when someone says, well, look, I've heard a lot about mindset coaches, etc. So Nick, what makes you different? Like, why should I pick you over someone else? How do you best answer that?
Well, there's two questions. What makes me different, I guess, is probably the first level that I hear that question at. And the answer to that is I'm willing to do the thinking and the feeling that most people can't be bothered doing. So I will obsessively chase the difference that makes a difference, and I will obsessively look for the pin that an individual can pull in order to see their life free up. So when I find a pin for an individual, I'll then see if I can make that a generalised pin that anyone could use. So that's sort of what makes me different. What makes my wife different, who's the other half of our business at the moment, is her intuitive ability to shift people. And when she shifts them, and I ask how she's done it, and I'll reverse engineer that. So what makes Inspired Tribe different is the framework that's a result of all that work. So we have a very simple framework that has a lot of depth behind it, but the depth is a bit irrelevant to the client. The simplicity is what people are after, especially in today's very complex world. How complex is today?
Yeah, so true. And in that complex world, how do you find new business? Like, what's your number one source for new business?
Well, it's not my ideal number one source at the moment, and it's a very good source. It's referral and networking. So people see us and experience us, and they refer us, and look, that is wonderful, lovely business. The only reason why I say that that's not my ideal is organic growth is perhaps slower than I'd like, and it will see us impacting less people than I would like to assist and influence and help. My aim is to change that over the coming years. That's our next sort of foray, is to how to spread the word of the work that we do.
Yeah, and look, it's amazing. I've talked to a lot of marketing and digital agencies, and their number one way of getting clients themselves is through referrals. So I think and as you said, in a really confusing world at the moment with social media, etc., it's really hard because you're just constantly bombarded. But if I could grant you a wish today to say, well, look, this is the path I would go down to help solve that, how would you answer that? What would you think would be the most logical path given what you know today?
If you could grant me one wish, as we're speaking now, I'm thinking of a studio where whenever I was inspired, I could just step in front of a camera and speak to the problem that I've just thought through, such that my thoughts would be out there for someone to listen to and to assist them. So that studio, wherever you are, whenever you want it. And I probably have that with my iPhone. It's just that when I have to think about bringing up the iPhone, it breaks the connection of the thought.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like, webinar rental for 12 months. So I used that as an excuse because there wasn't a clean wall. I can't do any video because there's not a clean wall. So I've moved into this new house. It's got a beautiful clean wall. And today I did 2 videos, but it's 2 videos and I've been here for a month, right? So it wasn't the clean wall. It's just, it's just that barrier. And I suppose it's that mindset of I know for me personally, I just don't like camera. I love audio. I could talk all day on podcasts like this. I love it. But when I go to camera, I just don't enjoy it as much.
Oh, I don't mind the camera. It's the fact that no one's at the other side of the camera.
Ah, right.
I can't see them. So if I'm talking to someone, I'm really present. But I'm talking to a camera, much harder. But I'm getting better at that because that's where I'd like to go. I see that as being probably the best medium for us. And so it's just a matter of me doing the work to feel into how to connect to that medium.
Great. And we sort of touched on it a bit where you said, organic is a bit slower than you'd like, but have you got any struggles with sales in the moment? And if you have, what are they?
It's funny that you asked that. I think my most recent struggles, and I think there's always a struggle with anything that you do, and struggle is a relatively positive word for me because there's always the next level. But my most recent struggle with sales was we're very good at what we do and we have lots of referrals. Why am I still feeling the desire to proactively sell? And I realised I had to take that journey to go, we're on the next stage of growth. We've got the framework, we've got a very good cohort of clients, and now we need to go to the next level of having too much work for ourselves such that we can give it heaps of work to other people. So that requires proactive selling, which is totally different to being a wonderful mindset mentor and having great loyal clients. that's why I need to sell. I need to sell because I want to grow a business more quickly. So I think with selling, it's finding what your hook is. And once you find the hook, you can talk through the hook or find someone else who can shift your thinking around that hook, and then it flows again. So I'm in the flow zone as far as sales go just at the moment, and I'll tell you about my next my next plateau when I get there.
Yeah, and look, I know you've been a coach through Action and had lots of experience. If you just had to give someone a tip on trying to find that hook in their business, what would that tip be?
It's to sit with the feeling, to notice when there's a feeling, that the hook is a feeling within you, whether it be in your chest or in your gut, and just to notice what thoughts are going through your head when that same hook keeps presenting itself, and that will sort of guide you to a specific area. Once you get an area, so it might be a business has the hook, right? Which area of your business, and you just every now and then scan through different areas of the business, and you'll notice a hook, say in marketing. Good, what specifically about marketing is it? And you just gradually narrow the choices down with your thinking such that you can feel into the core issue.
Great, and there's obviously Yolande and yourself. Anyone else in the team at the moment?
Well, it depends on what you consider to be the team. Yes, I would say there's lots of people. There's Trudy, who is our EA, and she's with us on a day-to-day basis. And then there's our business advisor, a JV partner that we've been working with to sort of take the business to the next level. There's internet advisors, and there's obviously people who do the admin side of things as well. So yes, there's a big team, but it's like all small businesses. We're all in our different areas, and some of us are in different businesses as well.
Yeah, and look, I know lots of people that come on here say that it's difficult picking really good suppliers. I know certainly for me that was the case. So after I left Coke, because Coke, it was really easy, to be honest, to pick a great supplier. But in my own business, it wasn't the case. What's some advice you would give, given your experience around picking the right suppliers or partners?
I guess it's similar to the mentor one, although in the mentor case, I'm just going to learn a specific aspect of what they do. When I'm looking to work with someone, do I like them as an individual? It's my very first check. And if I don't like them as an individual, I shouldn't be working with them, because it's likely to be reciprocal sort of not sureness about them. There might be something about me that they don't respect, and therefore they're unlikely to look after me like I would like them to look after me. So I like to like an individual so I can be really present to them and trust them. And if anything goes wrong, I want to be able to assume that they've done their best. And if we can't assume that, then there's a big issue, because with every situation, there's always issues that crop up, and that trust is critical.
Great. And I know that you talked about, going from referrals and network to, I suppose, the next phase in sales funnel. Is there any other big challenges that you face in running your business at the moment?
Oh, it's obviously there's so many things to do in a business. It's that I have massive energy and desire to keep it moving, and then I have a wife, and I have a family, and I have social life that I'd like to keep up with. So it's working out what thing to focus on next that's going to see us moving forward. That's going to see us having as much fun as we can while growing the business in the way that we'd like to. So it's really focusing on what's the next best thing to be doing. And I think that's a constant focus for every business owner. There's a million things that we could be doing. Which one are we going to spend our time on?
Yeah, and how do you go about that? How do you go about deciding on which priority to focus on?
My best strategy that I've had to date is to literally write a list, or at the very least do it in my mind, but writing a list on paper helps, and to reset that list every now and then, and just to go down it and feel which one feels like the most important item. And then once I feel it, I check if logically that seems to be the case too, and then I tackle that one. And the one that often feels the worst is the one that I need to do. So...
So true, so true. Look, the next section is the live section, and you've been very successful across multiple fields. Just tell us about some of the daily habits that have helped make you be a success.
Well, I feel that I really am a success these days, and it's interesting to say that I've had lots of success. Before I got to 40, I looked at my life and I was successful financially. I had a lovely husband. I had 2 wonderful children, and I could tick the boxes, all the outside boxes of success, but I didn't feel successful inside. I felt I was lacking. So these days, the key habit that I have is to always be checking in with how I feel. I'm always looking for how can I make my work feel better, my family life feel better, and that's my core focus.
Great. And what's one goal you plan to achieve this year that you may not be able to achieve if you are back working for someone else?
So have our first online version of our work. So very excited about building that at the moment. And also first book published. So there's two major goals this year.
Brilliant. Well, what do they say? Everyone's got a great book in them, but not many get out. So well done for being one that does.
Thank you.
If Yolande was listening to this, and hopefully she does listen to this podcast in the future, what would you like to say to her about the support she's given you?
Well, I'm quite vocal in my gratefulness to Yolande, but I'm more than happy to put it in digital recording so that she can listen to it again and again. And that is that I'm a driven person, so I know I can be tough to live with sometimes, but I do just love working with her, and I appreciate everything that she's done to help me learn about myself and to see where I can soften, where I can grow, where I can show more empathy and become a better person. So I just love working with my wife, and I love learning and growing with her. So thank you for your assistance and your understanding, Ellen.
Well, the next section is the give section. So what's a cause or a community you're passionate about and why?
There's two one community and one cause, I guess you could say. The community is the gay community. And I guess that's because I came to a point in my life where the person that I happened to meet, that I fell in love with, happened to be female. So I can't say that I've been needing to be gay my whole life, but there are people that have been in that community and have had that need and haven't been able to express themselves for a large chunk of their life, and have done a lot of work to make the life that I've now chosen acceptable to the majority. So I'm very grateful and passionate about that cause and contributing in any way that I can. And I feel the best way to contribute from my end is to help keep making people's thinking more flexible, because the more flexible we are in our thinking, the more open we are. And the other cause would be domestic violence. And once again, I do my thinking there in terms of masculine and feminine, and it's that pool of desire and attraction and rejection and hurt that sees such horrific circumstances occur there. And while there are many people doing wonderful work in terms of dealing with the outcomes of those challenges of two individuals not knowing how to cohabit together, I like to put my efforts into the front end of how do we fix the underlying cause there, such in generations to come we may be able to totally eliminate that type of behaviour.
Well, the last section is the action section. I'll just ask you some questions and you can just give some quick responses to help our community. So the first is, what are your top 3 productivity tips?
Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And second one would be, do your most important work in a place that connects you to yourself so that you can do it efficiently and effectively. And if you don't enjoy it, get good at it so you can delegate it.
Excellent. And what are some of your favourite apps, whether it be on your mobile or your desktop?
My favourite app by far is Notability. It allows me to use my Apple iPad and pencil, and it makes the digital feel analogue, so I love it. Then rev.com, and I've cheated here, Kindle and Audible are my last 2 favourites.
Excellent. And what podcasts or books would you recommend?
I'm not a massive podcast listener, I must confess, so Way the Superior Man would be one of my favourite books. And then it sounds a little deep, but The Narcissistic Family is also another insightful read for even the most normal of us.
Excellent. Great. So we'll have all the links to those in the show notes. And, it's been a wonderful sort of hearing your journey. I think mindset's a word that's really a little confused. What I say is that a lot of people hear the word mindset, but it means lots of things. It's a bit like the word strategy, I suppose.
Right.
So you sort of shone some light on it today, which is fantastic. What's some parting advice you'd love to give to the audience?
Parting advice would be do work that lights you up. And if you don't know what that is, then do the work to connect to yourself so you can work out what work is going to light you up.
Brilliant. And how can people find out more about you, Nikk?
They can find us on inspiretribe.com.au, so it's our website, or drop me an email at Nikk, which is Nikk, at inspiretribe.com.au.
Brilliant. And as I said, that and everything else that you've mentioned will be in the show notes. So, look, it was wonderful having you on the Corporate Escapees podcast today. It was great to hear your journey, and thanks for sharing it with our audience.
Thanks, Paul. It's been fun, and I hope some of my journey is useful to others.
Excellent. Great. Thanks a lot, Nikk.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by the team at Build, Live, Give. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with other corporate escapees. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.